Good afternoon to you all. I will take you in the next 50 minutes to indeed the research we are conducting today in mainly Belgium and the Netherlands, and we are checking there what COVID will do. Mainly, will it change the B2C parcel last mile networks? And the agenda of today, I will take you to the research question. I will give you some insights about the methodology, some facts and trends concerning pre-corona on the market itself here in Belgium and the Netherlands. I will take you to the impact that the corona waves, which we had here last year, which impacts they had on the last mile. Then a more detailed view on the impacts on the urban logistics, and then some more conclusions. So the research questions themselves are these two: which structural impacts and strategy changes will stay in the urban last mile due to COVID-19? And if you look to these changes or these strategy changes, are these really new? Are they new since COVID, or were already some of these strategies popping up some years ago, but were just speeding up due to COVID? We will come back on that later, of course. And the methodology, the research is still going on for the moment, but we are basing ourselves on the quantitative data we get from last mile companies, retailers, and urban consolidation centers from the Benelux. And we are also conducting some interviews with last mile business experts, so mainly from the companies itself. And the results are still preliminary, but it's interesting to look already to them. First of all, I would like to take you to some 8 facts or 9 facts, let's say. So if we speak about the B2C last mile pre-corona in the Benelux, first of all, as already said, fact 1, e-commerce was already growing for years and years. That's not new, of course. But a second fact is that if you look to that last mile parcel flow, let's say that it's a mixture of traditionally incumbent postal parcel players and some extra players like you have GLS, DPD, etc., etc. But overall, in both Netherlands and Belgium, the incumbent one, bpost and PostNL, had by far the largest market share. Next to that, you saw as well that in that typical parcel market, let's say the web shops, it's what you call Pareto optimum 80-20 rule. What do I mean by that is that 80% of the parcel volume is coming from, let's say, 20% of the web shops. You have some bigger ones which produce 80% of the volume, while the other 20 is by, let's say, a big amount of several shippers. The standard in the Benelux is still the next day delivery, and which means as well that a lot of these activities, a lot of parcel sorting is taking place during the night. So between 1 a.m. and 8 a.m. in the morning. Another fact is as well, for being able to do all those deliveries, many of those last mile players, they rely on subcontractor networks, and they have a high degree of automation. So many centralized, and that's fact 6 together, many of those centralized approaches, so many warehouses, not many, but some centralized warehouses with a high degree of automation. Next to that, a 7th fact is that if you look to those web shops, pre-corona, most of those larger web shops, they had 1 or maximum 2 logistical parties in the Benelux. So in most cases, they collaborated with, for example, bpost, or they collaborated with PostNL, but not many of them had multiple contracts. Due to the fact that it's 80-20 rule, and you had a high degree of exclusivity, made as well that the whole market is considered as a low margin market. So from a profit perspective, not many profits taking place in that market. And the last one, which is not new, of course, but last couple of years, high pressure for making the whole last mile more green. That are some facts to give you an insight on the Belgium and Netherlands market. But if we now go to spring 2020, now a year ago, a lot of shop closures here in Belgium and the Netherlands. And what you immediately saw was, and of course it's already said here and in other presentations as well, a huge increase in online shopping behavior. You see that there clearly as from March, both searching for online shopping, etc., increased significantly. But, and if we go a bit more into detail, if you go to the Belgium and the Netherlands market, in March, April, and May, the e-commerce, they had growth rates of up to 150 to 200%, which was non-food related, but in this case, these figures, but it gives at least, it was a huge increase in volume. But what is interesting is that the first fact, if we look to the results we get in from data from web shops and last mile companies, is that first fact is that electronics, traditional electronics and fashion, they decreased. So typically, like the first days working at home, you saw everybody sitting in suit in the screen and shorts below the screen, let's say it like that way. So not a lot of selling of fashion. But what we saw is that there was a huge amount of large oversized items that were ordered online. Painting, tires, trampolines, kids' toys, barbecues, all heavy-weighted products that were ordered online, and that you see as well at the research and the data we gathered in the left below corner, that's from the Belgian market between week 5 and week 16. The oversized items, they even exploded with 300% increase, which is huge, of course. And another fact is that food retailers and food boxes also increased significantly. But if we now go a bit more into detail on those oversized items, an interesting thing is that years ago, many of those last mile company players, and we saw it also from their data, they used, let's say 10 years ago, they used growth forecasts for their specific last mile strategies. And they, of course, they invested heavily in centralized automated systems. But what is so special about such an automated system is that, and you see that on the graph in the right, top right, is that the strategy of automation always says, try to calculate your average, your forecasted average. You build your capacity on your average. The peaks you try to handle with manual labor, and the rest you try to handle with your automated labor. So the blue dotted area, let's say it that way. But due to the increase of oversized items and in totally the growth, the demand for sorting increased to the green dotted line. But due to the fact that there were so many oversized items, the automated sorters could not work at high speeds. So your let's say your throughput went down significantly. So you had a huge issue there with the automated systems and the increased mix of oversized items. So if we check there the learnings from wave 1, let's say mix of product, what we saw there is potentially it might be an automation killer on the long term. Because more manual labor was needed. We also saw huge issues in the Benelux with the vans were quicker full, driver shortages. And two other things that we saw as well is that on average, the drivers, the subcontracted drivers, they are paid, let's say, per drop, but it's rather non-weight dependent. So we saw here in the market a real issue with subcontracted drivers that refuse to work or refuse to take those large items with them. That were the main learnings from wave 1. So, and of course, what you saw then with many of the parcel companies and couriers, both rural areas, but also in urban areas, sorry, your parcel has been delayed in transit. That was wave 1. Then we went to the summer. Everything stabilized a bit, but we saw as well there that the growth rates were still between 25 and 50%, which is still rather high, but manageable during these times. Then we go to wave 2 in autumn. And what we see there is, again, in Belgium and the Netherlands, so the second wave of COVID, again, growth rates of, in the Netherlands, 50%, in Belgium, again, up to 200%. And you would think we have learned from the first wave. What you saw there was that indeed it were not anymore the large categories. So everybody bought his toys, everybody bought his barbecue. It was a mix of overall categories in the data we received from companies. But what you saw and what we did is, or not we, but what the market did was, In November and October, there was a huge pressure on the system, but marketing guys organized Black Friday. So they pushed Black Friday. There was already stress on the system, and they organized Black Friday. What was the result in Belgium and the Netherlands? This, you saw that even the Belgian postal company bpost, they at a certain moment they stopped delivering parcels to homes, so they did not anymore deliver at home. They only wanted to deliver in the postal office or in a collection point. In the Netherlands, same issue. So you can say there, if we look to the market itself, we take helicopter view, and that's our research for the moment. The second wave highlighted a bit the same problems again, but we thought, can we learn something from other markets? Can we learn something from other strategies in other markets if we compare the parcel market with another market? Because what is so typical, as already said, low margins, high capex, high degree of automation, hub and spoke system, outsourcing, and very peak sensitive. We looked around and we checked with Professor Dewulf, who is an airline industry professor at the university. And what we saw that was that if you compare that to the airline industry of the 80s and the 90s, you saw something similar. Also high capital expenditure, high degree of seasonality. What they did in the 80s and the 90s was that you had several old incumbents had to change to a model of premium or low cost. Instead of using your airplanes only 8 hours, they had to switch to 20 hours. They went away from the hub and spoke system to point-to-point systems. And instead of using one national fixed price for a parcel, they were using yield systems saying, if there is high demand, you need to pay more for your parcel. And if you now look a bit deeper into that, can we learn something from that sector? Well, if you look to the disruptors there, for example, a company like Southwest in the 80s, what they did were four main things. They started again, instead of outsourcing, they started again insourcing. They used cherry picking for the nice urban areas. They implemented a no entry or no overbooking policy. And as well, they stepped into the full point-to-point system, not anymore the huge hub system. So what we say there is that something where we can learn from? Absolutely, because what did we see now in the Belgian market, for example? These two companies, some of you might know them. It's Budbee, which is a daughter company of Zalando and H&M, and Colis Privé, which is a daughter company from Amazon. They communicated 1 week ago that they will open their businesses in Belgium as from next month. So all of a sudden, everything you saw happening in the airline industry in the 80s, you see it now happening as well in Belgium and in the Netherlands. In some countries, it was already happening, but you see it happening again. And it's speeding up, of course. So, and also another thing what you saw from an urban perspective is that a lot of cities, they saw how calm inner cities can be without traffic jams due to the lockdowns. So a lot of cities like the city of Milan already said, like, we want to keep the same level after the pandemic than now. And the other thing, due to the huge delays in deliveries, a lot of companies are switching to a multi-carrier model, which we mean, instead of only using the old incumbent, for example, switching or spreading your volume over different parties and also dependent on the area where you are operating. Some of the next slide I will skip because I think would take a bit too long then, but if we look to the main conclusions up till now in the research and from, let's say, an urban logistics point of view, what we see is that a lot of these automated systems with centralized approach, they are coming under pressure, and you see a shift to more decentralized approaches, much more local, urban, and sustainable strategies. And for example, here in Belgium, and that was one slide that I skipped, but here in Belgium, in the middle of the pandemic, we saw a lot of companies switching from the old bpost company, switching to, for example, an urban logistics company like City Depot, saying like, we are only using bpost for the rural areas, and for the cities, we are going to use, for example, companies like City Depot, not only to make it more flexible, but also to be more sustainable and to use the multi-carrier model. And that were the main conclusions we have up till now, but next couple of months, we plan to increase that research for sure.
will you close the recording?